Welcome to episode 207 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with FanCam founder Tinus Le Roux to dispel some myths around facial recognition in sports.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who's connecting with listeners on LinkedIn, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. Yes, my name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. And if you have been listening and you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, my apologies. I should have connected with you by now. If you haven't, please send me a connection. Sean Callanan on LinkedIn. I should be relatively easy to find. Hopefully, I'm already connected with a bunch of people that you already know. But please, if you are connected, please send me a message on LinkedIn. Tell me that you do listen to the podcast. LinkedIn is one of my favourite networks. I think it's one of the most powerful networks from a sports business point of view. And I'm very grateful for the connections and the friends that I've made via that. So, I'm always happy to connect with listeners on LinkedIn. It's always great to get a message saying, hey, Sean, I would like to connect or listen to the podcast. Otherwise, you can connect with me via email. It still works, people. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com or at Sean Callanan on most platforms, including the Sports Geek Nation Slack community. At Sean Callanan will get me. And as always, if you want to organise a time for a chat, I'm happy to help and work with podcast listeners. They're some of my favourite clients. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/work to reach out. I think I've given you enough ways to connect. I think I might as well get into the podcast. This chat with Tinus Le Roux from FanCam. Again, he is one of the regular attendees at SEAT. He was actually part of the opening panel at SEAT Dallas this year. Tinus's company is FanCam. Tinus was on the podcast way back in 2013, and I do apologise for not having Tinus on since then. His business has gone from strength to strength. We talk about FanCam and the business that it has grown into and how it has evolved over the years, but then also start talking about what Tinus recently posted, and we'll put links in the show notes of his Medium posts on facial recognition and computer vision that we discuss. We caught up in New York in post-SEAT, and we were in a business center or a hotel. So keep a listen out for the loudest printer you'll ever hear. That's when someone came in and decided to print something off in the business center. But I hope you do enjoy this chat with Tinus Le Roux, because I did. So an Australian and a South African walk into a hotel and record a podcast. I'm here in New York catching up with CEO and founder of FanCam, Tinus Le Roux. Good to catch up.
Yeah, great, man.
We have caught up for the last couple of years at SEAT and never pulled out the microphones in earnest. And we were both here at the same time in New York, so I thought let's have a chat and catch up with the FanCam story.
Yeah, I'm glad we can find the time. It's actually cool to see you outside the SEAT environment for a change.
Yes. So for those who have been long-time listeners, we caught up, I think it was in Kansas City, which was it your first SEAT at Kansas City, or was it that was 2014?
Yeah, I think so.
So and at that stage, getting an understanding of FanCam and getting into the US sports market, do you first want to give people a bit of an explainer of what FanCam is, and then maybe take us back to those early days and what you thought the product would be back when you started?
Yeah, FanCam is, in a nutshell, two things.
Yep.
We specialize in resolution. So we figured out how to take really big pictures quickly.
Yep.
Gigapixel photography is the technical term. And we use it to capture a crowd photo of high enough resolution that fans can zoom in and find themselves, even if they're sat in a nosebleed. And we've been doing that for almost a decade now.
Yep.
That's the first part of it. It's used as a fan engagement tool because people like pictures of themselves. So that's kind of this simple thesis. And then over time, we figured out that because of the resolution, we've got some interesting data there. If you use a bit of computer vision, you can learn a few things about the crowd and crowd composition and stuff like that. So what people call facial recognition, although it's technically not correct, computer vision would be the more overarching term used there. But yeah, FanCam is those two things, a content company and a crowd insights company.
Yeah, and so it started off, and as someone who's been in a fan cam or two, you actually recorded some at Seat, and famously at Seat Miami, you got up to do the fan cam of everyone there. I think there was 800 people, and I had lost my voice, and I stepped it all the way through, and I tell the story that I lost my voice. I've got the slides that timed all the way through, and my voice had just come back, and you say, it's going to take 3 minutes to take this photo, Sean. I'm like, I've planned everything down to the minute. But yeah, as the story goes, 40 minutes holding the microphone, not speaking. Tinus pulls out the camera ready to take the shot, and I pretty much just get on the mic and say, come on, people, this photo's gone on the internet. So if you look at that Seat Miami photo, there's there's so many jaws that are on the ground. They're going, hang on, this guy's just punked us all. So it's good. So it definitely started in that space, being a brand activation play for big sports events.
Yes.
And it was pretty much, that was your pitch. It was like, hey, you want to be seen and you want to say, I was at the Super Bowl, or is that a big bowl game, or is that a big playoff game? And so it was very much a big event play early on, wasn't
Correct.
it?
Yeah, that's it. Actually, before that, before there was a pitch, it was just an invention.
Yep.
We stumbled onto it. Before FanCam, we had a small VR company, Virtual Africa, and played with something called 360-degree photography, which everyone would call VR today.
Yep.
That was like 10, 15
That's
years ago.
and way early before anyone was ready for it.
Yeah, no one was ready for it. So
Yep.
I was saying, and we got into it not because of the buzzword, because it wasn't the buzzword at the time. I just remember seeing my first 360 image, and it was of a safari lodge we captured, and then next to it, the text that explained it. And I just realized it takes me like a minute to read the text and 15 seconds to look
Scan
at this
around.
thing, and I get more information. This is a more efficient way of communication.
Yep.
So obviously it's going to be the future. But at that point, not everyone understood that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still we're still trying to figure out 360 and 360 video and things like that.
So yeah, it started with that.
Yep.
And then because VR is composite imaging.
Yep.
Gigapixel imagery is just a step up from that. So I saw my first gigapixel image, and in those days it was just of landscapes because it took 3 hours to take these things.
Yep.
And between myself and James, one of my co-founders, we studied a bit of engineering together, and we've always been okay with the math. And so we figured out this would be really cool if we use it at a rugby game in Cape Town. So can we figure out how to capture time down to 10 minutes? And we did. So we did that, and we pumped.
And so that was James sitting in the middle of the field on the sideline going click, 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 click all the way around.
That's it. And then the two of us heading to a big computer and not sleeping for 4 days and trying to put that whole thing together.
Yeah.
And we put it out, and it just we didn't know the term go viral back in the day, but it's exactly what happened. People just tagged themselves and shared it. And from there on, we started realizing, every time we take one of these pictures, people go look at it, and they spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
And then learned more about sports and sponsorship and realized, but that's actually a sponsorship asset. That's exactly what they're looking. The reasons sponsors are involved in sport is because brands struggle to create community.
Yep.
Sport, that's what sport does.
And that's why they're attracted to sport.
That's why they're there.
They want to go and hang with your
It's a
tribe.
symbiotic relationship. It's sports teams have something that brands can't create, which is community.
Yep.
Now, sports teams don't, bit of a tangent, sports teams don't always understand that as their product.
Yep.
They think it's ticket sales and merch and stuff like that. Yep. That's part of it. But the real product is not what's happening on the field of play or on the court. It's that community and how to monetize that community. So we, for the first time, and we stumbled onto this, it was possible to capture that community visually and generate engagement. And that, if you add those things together, you've got the ideal sponsorship asset or platform. So that was
And so from a pitch point of view, like early on, you were pitching to the teams and the event holders and sort of pitching to them?
Not really. This
that...
has been the benefit of being generalists, not being sports people per se or technology people. As we sat down and said, look, how does this thing work? So Coca-Cola gives these guys money to put signage up because they want the eyeballs of the fans. So let's go to Coca-Cola. So we immediately start the sponsorship side.
You started on the sponsorship side.
We jumped on a plane and I Googled. I found a guy with the name Pat Coyle. Who's Pat at a digital sports conference in Atlanta, and Skulk and myself, my other co-founder, jumped on the plane. And within a week, we had meetings at Coca-Cola and other people, and it made sense. So,
and it's a better way of doing it that way than pitching it to a team to say, hey, here's a great opportunity that you can sell back to Coca-Cola.
Well, I think so. Yeah. We've done both, but that's how we started. We started on the sponsorship side because it was follow the money. Where's the money going to come from? And we didn't understand much about sports. You can start anywhere.
And it was a bit of naivety in that space sort of helped you to a certain degree?
I think so, but it was. I think it's also. I look at a lot of startups these days. I think there's a massive misconception. We spoke about this once. Is that I think people have ideas about applications in sport, and they sit at a game and say, "Oh, see, I can see LeBron playing. He's making a lot of money. If I can work with his boss, I'll make a lot of money." What they don't understand is there's a massive difference between front office and sport and athletes. So they think, okay, well, if I can just work with this team, I'll give them something for free, and then the next team, and I'll be a millionaire.
I think Paul Greenberg made a good point of that. Of like you said, the brands of sport are super large, but the teams of sport and the budgets of sport underneath are far smaller than people think.
That's exactly it. So yes, bit naive maybe, but if I had to do it again,
but it's also. I didn't mean to say naive. But it was also following the money. It's like where is the best place for us to pitch this? Coca-Cola is someone that wants to activate in this space.
Exactly. So it's a bit of both. But since then it's gone. I mean, we're doing it for I think 9 years now. I think it's 50-50, and some of our clients are team direct. If they have a strong sponsorship team, then they have a.
And it works when they need more inventory. You come along and say, hey, here's more inventory.
Exactly. Yeah. But if they don't, if they're a team that's happily selling signage or views on their website, then no, they won't sell this.
And so so initially early on, you were flying people, cameramen around to take the shots. So how did you get past those scaling issues?
The other benefit there was because we weren't photographers per se, we didn't have to hold on to the technology, so we immediately trained other photographers. So James spent the first year 200 hotel nights that year. And I had I think 10 nights of sleep that year. So I was creating a process so we can scale, but it was just brute force. But we did Daytona within that first month in the States. We did Daytona 500. We've done that a couple of times since. We got a deal with U2 where we captured all their stuff. And then suddenly everyone knew about it. And then we needed to figure out, that classic thing about jumping off the cliff and building the
And the momentum was like, now everyone wants it.
Yeah, exactly. But for different reasons. And then that's the challenge, is figuring out, okay, cool. So this guy wants it because it's cool.
But a bell and whistle. Hey guys, you can see yourself.
Nice. But he doesn't necessarily understand that it works as well. So then the second year you realize, okay, some of these guys you'll get as return customers, and others you won't. And then repositioning that and learning on the fly.
So how do you? Because there is a bit of bright shiny, right? About fan cameras. Probably this will be cool. But if they don't truly understand it and activate it and understand the multiple benefits, whether it's the data capture piece, whether it's the insights piece, then they're not really seeing the value, which is a churn problem and a renewal problem for you. How do you help onboard and make sure people know this is the opportunity?
Well, it's tough. And in the beginning, you just try to convince people, but now you need to. Now that we've been in the game longer, I've just realized some organizations can handle that discussion, others can't. So don't waste your time. But the irony of it is a bright and shiny tech product. And I'm not a bright and shiny tech guy.
Yeah.
I'm a very boring numbers guy.
Yeah.
So my fascination, as I said in the beginning, was efficiency of the communication initially, and then that it actually works.
Yeah.
Because in the first years, people said, "Oh, this is cool this year, but it's going to work next year."
Yep.
And I realized, but it's got nothing to do with the technology. It's got to do with fans being tribal.
Yeah.
The same reason fans buy. Why do fans buy jerseys with team names and walk around in public?
Yep.
It's saying I'm part of this group.
Yeah.
That is the driver of the community. So the picture plays into that, and it's not just a picture of me. It's not
Yep.
just. That's the thing with selfies. It's a picture with context.
Yep.
So we stumbled onto that. It's lucky, but that's why 9 years later the engagement numbers are as high, if not higher.
And how has the shift been from like that early play of big major event playoff type game to we're now doing every single game, and even in some cases, multiple shots. How has that evolved?
Well, it's still a challenge, and it depends on the client and partner. We've quickly figured out that it keeps on working.
Yep.
I didn't understand why initially.
Yep.
We just saw the numbers. And over time, we started understanding why. One of the reasons is this tribalism that I mentioned. The other is that I don't think teams realize how the churn in their fan base, attendance. They think it's the same crowd every night.
Yep.
And it just isn't. And we've now...
And so is that in like ticket swaps and people using other people's tickets, single
different
game
reasons,
buyers?
but the point is we've done it through facial recognition. We've just seen it's not the same people, which means it's a new group that wants their picture taken, and
Yep.
off you go. So we've seen at clients like where I think the last 4 seasons at the New England Patriots,
Yep.
we don't even promote it anymore, and we're getting the same number of engagement numbers as in the first years.
Yep.
They just keep on wanting to say, I was at this game.
Yep.
Because at this game, Brady did that. It's
Yep.
a different narrative, a different story.
It's very much the collecting of the ticket stubs to remember you're in the
Yes.
game. You're providing that digital
Exactly.
little tick to say, which is something that's super important in the whole ticketing, declining numbers, people not going to the game. You want that, and I would call them your digital cheer squad that is going to the game to put their hand up and say, I'm going to the game. Tinus, why aren't you going to the game? I haven't seen your photo lately. You should be going to the game. So it sort of plays in that guilt fan marketing piece.
It does, and it's the same as you checking in when you arrive in New York. You've
Yep.
done it. You did it last time you were here. It doesn't mean you're not going to do it this time. You want
Yeah.
to say something, say something about yourself. So I think that's always been a strength and weakness on my side. As you know, my background is both engineering and theology. So I've spent time trying to understand communities and psychology and trying people wanting to be part of a movement or a tribe, and I think that's sometimes discounted in sports.
Yep.
We're so focused on what's your email address, asking why are you here,
Yeah.
and we often say it's for the entertainment value,
Yeah.
and that is there. But I think the community part of it is underplayed, and products like FanCam keep on working because of that, because there is a community, because it's not just a sterile entertainment value thing. It's me being here because my dad was here and
Yep.
his dad was there before, and this is something we're going to talk about around the water cooler.
And so from a setup point of view now, you pretty much take us through the process. If, one of our listeners is there and they've got a stadium and they're saying, Tinus, what's FanCam look like in my stadium? What's the pitch currently? Because you've moved away from the James is going to come and at this time he's going to take that photo.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's a big change that happened about 3 years ago.
Yep.
Where we said, look, we can't scale beyond our available photographers, and we want to because we want data.
Yep.
So could we install a camera and then remote control that camera to capture this? And yeah, the answer is yes, we can. So we're in 12 venues now, Madison Square Garden, TD Garden, Boston for the arenas, and baseball is the Braves and Twins and the Cardinals. Installing at the Blue Jays this week, just did DC United and a couple of others.
Yep.
And it's a permanently installed camera that is remote controlled, and it just captures every game. In fact, it captures multiple shots during the game.
Yep.
So now we don't have to send out a photographer. It's not trying to find a time between the anthem and the kickoff.
Yeah, and it's not, hey guys, stand up now.
No,
it's the third inning. We're going to take the photo.
We're just shooting away. So that's been a big change on multiple levels. One is that we could scale. So last year we did 5 times more events than the year before with the same team. And this year we'll double that. And that's the one thing. The other is that we're able to capture data. So that's the thing that I've been working on for the past 3 years, is understanding what can we learn from looking at these pictures.
So take us through this, as you said before, computer vision. That's sometimes gets misconstrued as facial recognition, and then there's a little, the spectre of Big Brother is watching.
Yeah.
Like, I'll link to, I think it was a Medium post that you posted recently about facial recognition and the sports business and the Holy Grail. Like, take us in a little bit of what computer vision is and what it isn't, and some of the misconceptions that you're seeing.
Yeah, that's a deep topic in itself. But maybe let's start with some technical background and trying to dumb it down. Once again, I'm a generalist, so I don't do computer vision as such, but I understand how it works.
Well, that's what I just want, I guess, listeners to better understand what you're able to do and what the technology is allowing you to do and what it is and what it isn't.
Yes.
Is probably, because I think that's all getting merged together, and that's where the misconceptions lie.
That's exactly right. So let's break it down to what computers can do. Is computers can analyze a face and break it down to about 128 points. And then once they've done that, then that face, those pixels become a number or a set of numbers.
Yep.
And now they can start comparing those numbers. So if I have 2 pictures of your face, I can say, these numbers are similar. So these 2 faces are 89% similar.
Yep.
So they can match faces. They can also match your face against a database of other faces and say, well, it looks like these group, and they're all in my case, they're all 42. So this face is probably 42.
Yeah.
So that's basically what it is. It comes down to that. But what computer vision does, it if you throw a face into a facial recognition or facial analysis platform like Amazon or Google has the same, a few others, it'll give you back demographic data. So let's start with that. Say this is the average, this is the age, and this is the gender. It'll also give you mood. This guy seems like he's smiling or he's surprised, things like that.
So that would be fascinating during a game to see, the team scores a touchdown or there's a big dunk or there's a home run hit, and to see the elation or to see, the opposite.
Or there's an anthem protest.
Okay.
Or what's happening there. So we're playing with stuff like that.
Yep.
So for that that computers can do. We don't need to do it. It exists. It's a deep body of work. It's based on it's a solved problem.
Yep.
What you need for it is input data.
Yep.
Which is where pixels come in. We just happen to have a hell of a lot of pixels to put
Yep.
in there. So just to add to that, where recognition comes in. Recognition is something else.
Yep.
Recognition is if you match 2 of these faces, but the one face that you have in your possession has an assigned identity to it. That's recognition.
Yep.
So the only people who can do that is people with a database of identified faces.
Okay.
So that would be Facebook.
Yep.
They've got a database of identified faces. Google has that.
Google has that, yep.
The NSA has that. The Chinese government has that, and a few others. Those are the guys who can do facial recognition.
And that's the stuff that you see Law and Order, and they go bring up, and and you just go, that's not how it works.
No,
guys. That's not how it works on TV.
The big thing with Law and Order is that enhance, zoom that in. That thing is nonsense, and that's a misconception. The other thing is that, so that's a good example. So let's look at a security application. I've got 5 faces on a watch list that I don't want in my venue.
Yep.
I can take pictures of all the fans there. I'm not saying, that's Sean Callahan. Yeah. That's not the guy I'm looking for. It's not. It's like, does that face match to one on a database? It doesn't. Throw it away. So I'm not pulling your personal identifiable information. I'm scanning your face, but I'm not doing facial recognition in the way that you see it on television. That's an important distinction. As soon as you give your face away, though.
Yep.
Then
is the extension of that your season ticket holder or your membership base could like put their face as part of their card, and then that's when you have got the matching ability.
You could,
Yeah.
but you need that. So the core thing is there. The computers are stupid. You need a database of assigned identity. They can match faces. They can't just say, "I look at this face. He looks like an Australian." It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's the background of it. In terms of fan cam, we don't do facial recognition at all.
Okay.
A couple of reasons. One is we can't do it.
Yep.
We don't have a database of faces.
Yep.
Secondly, I'm not interested in it. It's not our business model. Our business model is understanding the analysis of the crowd. What's the demographics? So I don't care if it's you at the game. I want to know how many.
But are people? Is that a common request? Like, because there was this big buzz 3 or 4 years ago, especially around loyalty and those kind of things, and there was card-based ones to sort of tag you where you've gone and that kind of stuff. Does that make it more frictionless? I mean, it does have the the creepy Big Brother piece.
That's it. We get that request, and I say no for the previously mentioned reasons. It's just not what we do. I think it's a natural extension within sports people and CRM people saying more personal identifiable data.
Yep.
But it's something else. And I think people
and it's
are
a slippery
rushing.
slope of
It's not even
privacy.
a slippery slope. It's just full on you there.
Yeah.
It's if you open that floodgate, I would be my advice to people asking me that is just take it slow. Because biometric information is not an email address.
Yeah.
So you're going to store it, which means if you get hacked, there's liability there. It doesn't necessarily solve a massive problem in the fan's life.
Yep.
It really is about teams wanting that data. There are more ethical ways of getting the data. And I'd first encourage teams saying, what are you doing with the data that you have? Before you're going for something that's potentially scary and dangerous.
Yeah.
So
I mean, effectively, in the airport space, that's what Clear and that they're doing, and they're trying to solve a problem of I want to get through quicker. So people are opting in, and if everyone was signing up for that, then that would be the accepted norm, but it's still not.
Exactly. And I think that is a use case where it makes sense because it's a high security environment, and it does create a frictionless experience. Sport is something different. So I'm not saying that facial recognition shouldn't be used in sports venues. I'm just saying I work in this space. I don't think there's a massive rush. And
so you were talking, you talked a little bit about it in the opening panel at Seat around, what you're finding from your insights and how it's, in some cases vastly different to what the ticketing data and the databases are saying of who's in the stadium. Do you want to sort of dive in on that?
So my interest, and then back to what we actually do within the facial recognition stuff, is we do pull the demographics. So it's like essentially looking at a crowd and saying, let's take it away from the face, who's wearing a blue sweater today? Or how many people are wearing that? It doesn't touch the personal identifiable information. But it's fascinating nonetheless because it differs between the different teams. It differs time of day, day of week, depending on the teams. So what we started doing with these venues that we've installed at is we just ingest this data. And now we're like a year.
So when you're saying ingest this data, you're ingesting all the pictures and letting computer vision run over it to say male, female, age groups, all that demographic info to be able to give you the
every
comeback.
person in the venue, and then the big thing is structuring that in a way that you can analyze it. So now it's starting to become interesting because now you're two years in, and you can compare the different seasons. So you can see if you have 2 seasons at a baseball team and they're selling more tickets or fewer, you can try and identify what subsection of the crowd is not there anymore. Or you can go back in time and pick up, this is the point where you started losing millennials. Or this is how your team differs from the rest of the league. And that becomes really interesting.
And we were talking before we got on air on sometimes you get the data back and you're like, oh, hang on, is this right? There's a lot of women in this. It's like, and you have to then dive in and go, oh, that's why.
Exactly.
Because, you've always got to be questioning your data.
So we just had an example like that this morning where we're putting out a report for a client and there's just a spike in female attendance in one of the days. And my first thought is, okay, somewhere we did the maths wrong. And then we've realized, it's Cinco de Mayo. And I have to phone my American friends and saying, what happened on the 5th? So all the bachelorette parties went to the game. That the data is right. So, but now we know to what extent. We know there's how many thousand more you can expect on Cinco de Mayo at that specific team.
So what do the next 12, 18 months look like for FanCam?
It's two things. One is capturing more data. Because as the scale, it also becomes more valuable. So what we find now with our clients is saying, okay, I now know my average age is younger than I thought because we're not getting ticketing data. But I want to know what it benchmarks against the rest of the industry.
Yep. So you can do that obviously across different sports as you're in different sports, like across a sport, and then compare it with other sports.
Exactly.
And, I think, the audience being younger is counter to every other thing and every other anecdote and every other data point that's coming out.
Exactly. And we've verified it now and it makes sense. And now that leads you to this thing of where did they get the data initially? And we dove into the ticketing data and it makes sense. The oldest guy in the group always buys the tickets. But to what extent? And does that differ between baseball and basketball?
And it's going to be interesting to see how ticketing products move. We've seen the A's go and move to pretty much a general admission membership package. So then, they're not selling the seat. So people will be moving around. There'll be people coming at different times for different reasons, different nights or different opponents. And you'll get different data sets every single time.
Exactly. So your question is next 12 to 18 months, more venues so that we've got a bigger data set and we can learn more. And then also we're starting with a proper trend analysis. Because it's interesting saying, okay, this game at an average age of 37.5, but that means almost nothing. I want to see what that looks like over 3 seasons.
Okay.
And what we're finding now is clients coming to us and saying, okay, we've identified this problem. Can you help? So, well, let's go back. The data is there. It's been structured. Let's go figure out where the millennials fell off. We found that it was really around the time you made that trade that had this big an impact and that put you over a tipping point. And now your crowd composition was off, which meant others left as well. It's not an actual case, but those type of trend analysis so we can understand how these communities operate and not how the individuals interact with product.
So in a team or a stadium environment, who's your primary client? Because you're sort of working with the stadium tech folk in the rollout installation phase and in a part of operations, but then once it's installed, you're probably, and again, you're sort of working with the marketing insights, data people, as well as potentially sponsorship people. So how's that pitch? Because it's a little bit splintered across multiple departments.
That is the biggest challenge. And luckily, it's in terms of that part of the business, it's like a startup within a startup. We've luckily done this before, but it's different from one organization to the next.
Okay.
So you start with finding there's a sponsorship guy that needs an asset. And it's like, okay, cool. Let's explain to you the content part. Let's monetize that. Now introduce me to your CRM guy. Or the other way around. And that is the challenge because this is actually a product that helps the whole organization and the organizations aren't always set up to be able to make those decisions.
I mean, notoriously sports organizations are siloed. And so the tech folk and the sponsorship folk and the data folk and the digital folk don't always talk, aren't always on the same page. Not saying it's happened everywhere, but I find myself in that digital divorce counselor mode, sort of working between, and so you've sort of got to have this split 3-way pitch, sort of, and go where the opportunity is, and then I guess you've got the fourth one because the brand might come in and say, here, this is what we want to activate, and you come via the brand, via sponsorship, back through the team.
No, that's exactly it. So what we've done is we've split up the product and the pricing. And the price was, hey, here's the whole thing because that's how my head works. This should work. I'm an entrepreneur, so I think about my whole organization. And I'm a CEO as well, so I think about but that's not the guy on the other side of the table. So we learned that lesson and split it up and saying, okay, here's a content piece. It's X for that. Let's capture all your games and publish it, and I'll help you pitch it out to the other guys. Now go introduce me to your data people. I'll go sell something else to them. So our strategy is splitting up the product so that the different silos within the organization can buy. That will cover our cost, and then we'll essentially upsell the rest. or is getting high up in the organization where there's someone that can make a decision that's a strategic one. Because this is the challenge, is this data set is not the only data set, but it's going to be facial. Computer vision is not going away.
Yeah.
This data is going to help organizations future-proof themselves. But now you need to make that decision now to start capturing stuff, even though you don't know what it's going to tell you in the next 6 months.
But you do need that data to say, well, we're going to put out a product for the millennial market.
Yes.
We need to know if they're actually turning up, rather than lick the finger, put it up in the air, and check the temperature.
Exactly,
of the wind.
but because it's so new, teams often want you to put a bow on it, say, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to tell you what to do with your ticketing. That's not what we do. What we do is we can tell you what's happening in the venue on a broad basis, and then we work with you to figure out what is valuable there, what are the real insights. Obviously, we can share what we've learned from other teams, but this is because it's so new. It's fascinating. I love it because. This example I showed earlier is, okay, right, now we know that this massive spike on that date at your venue. What are we going to do with it? So let's sit with your sponsorship guys. Let's go find a sponsor, and you can quantify the ROI beforehand and change your pitch. So there's so many things you can do with this, and it touches all the parts of the organization. But for us, the focus in this early stage is getting more cameras in the building, or getting cameras in more buildings, and so that we can learn and help teams find actual value in it.
And your focus is definitely in the North American market.
Yes, that's always been our strength. It's a favorite market of ours, and specifically for the installs. While we do manual shoots around the world, still it's the US of A and a bit of Canada.
So where can people find you on the internet?
Company website is fancam.com. If they want to see actual fan cams, it's baseball season now, so braves.fancam.com, twins.fancam.com.
Yeah, I think it was last year at the Braves game. Even though we didn't see any baseball, you showed me all the cameras which were freshly installed. I think just below the Coca-Cola signs there. So and so you're doing every game and
every game. Yeah, we're publishing every game, but we're capturing every inning actually for the data. And then me personally is Tinus Le Roux. I'm on Twitter often, and not always about sports. More about when I'm safaring in Africa.
Yes, and you're birding.
I'm birding. Birding is a weird thing for me as a tech guy, but it's almost discipline now. I realized I don't unwind, and it's my way of just getting into the bush and switching off the phone. So it's a bit Pokemon Go. You've just got to collect all the birds. You've just got to tick them all off. It's Pokemon Go for nature lovers, basically.
Yeah, occasionally I see you go offline and you come back and there's this flood of photos and you're talking about some, and again, not a bird guy, you're talking about some rare finch in the savannah somewhere.
Yeah, I'm slightly embarrassed by it because it's so niche, but it's just on a personal level, I started doing it with my dad, and I went out since I was about 8 years old.
Yep.
And I stopped because it just wasn't cool.
Yeah.
I played sport and a few other things. It was just cool. And then I realized now that every time I go in like the Kruger National Park, or if I go through the gates, I switch off. I forget about facial recognition and all this other stuff. And I just realized that this is, if I wanted to not,
it's your detox.
This is my detox.
Yeah.
So I've just gone on a 2-week road trip with my dad. Just looking for weird birds in weird places. Yeah. And it's awesome for me. So that happens on Twitter, but I'll tweet some face recognition stuff as well.
That's okay. That's okay. I will link to that Medium post that you did to sort of I guess call out's the wrong word, but just clean up some misconceptions around data and facial recognition and.
I'd advise that as a quick read if you want to understand it, not from a technical point of view, but there are a few things that are understandable if people actually spend the time. Facial recognition is not going away because it helps keeps us safe. Yeah. But there are a few use cases of it that I think we should take it slow.
Yeah, and it is about understanding it because there is that the last thing you want is the sports fan sort of having that tinfoil hat on and going,
Exactly.
I don't want that Big Brother experience.
I thought about this morning. I think we're at the place now where in the beginning of the internet you'd say, Netscape and Amazon and
big
Yahoo,
callback.
they're all .coms.
Yeah.
They're all the same thing.
AOL.
Exactly. They're all the same thing.
Yeah.
We now know that they did different things.
Yeah.
So I'll walk into a meeting and say, facial recognition. You guys do facial recognition. I said, yes, we do have a website.
Yeah.
It's two different things. And I've always been very cognizant of it because...
and especially, I think, with the whole Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, data privacy piece, like it makes it like tread carefully and softly into that space is, and like you said before, it's a bit of a buzzword to say, hey, we want this in sports, but how about you deal with the data you've got?
That's exactly the same thing. I think it's a nuanced discussion that's required. Just like biometrics in general, there's a big difference between your face and your fingerprint.
Yep.
You control your fingerprint. You need to provide it. Your face, you don't.
Yep.
Anyone can use that. And you'll find this, if you think about it, you'll find the same type of thing with Elon Musk using AI but saying AI is different.
Yeah,
dangerous.
Yeah,
and that's that distinction. We don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There just needs to be a bit of thinking. And that article just creates a bit of a basic analogy saying what's computer vision, what's fine.
But it's also just let's keep having that conversation to see where it evolves in
because
sport.
There's massive value. I mean, we can literally learn. We can provide a better product without touching anyone's data. It's not anonymized data. It's anonymous data. There's no way to know. So I think that's an important distinction.
So the Sports Geek closing 5, do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Yes. It may have not been the first one. The first one I remember was it was a rugby test in South Africa. I think it was actually against Australia. The Springboks played. And it must have been late 80s. I was coming from playing in the rain myself and sat.
So it would have been maybe the David Campese era?
Exactly. Campese and Horan and those guys played. I think we lost, but I just remember it being just a wet, like cold.
Who was playing for South Africa at that stage? Who would have been in that team?
I was too young to have fans, but to be a fan, remembering and thinking it would have been Puerto would have played. Because this was before readmission. It was one of those first games.
Yeah.
Before we got into the readmission stuff. So Donnie Gerber, I remember well, those guys. So very cold, sat behind behind the posts. I just remember trying to stay. I don't remember much of the game. It's just I was
trying to stay
8
warm
or something, and my dad was up in the stands.
Yeah.
The good thing about those times, the kids, it was a kids section around Newlands. They took away later, which wasn't smart. But that's the first game I remember.
Terrific. You would have been a few ballparks and stadiums in your time in doing installs. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food when you're in a ballpark or a stadium?
You know what? When I'm at ballparks, I'm most often at work.
Yep. So you hit in the media room,
or just missioning. So if you. It's actually back home, Newlands Cricket Ground, which is one of the most beautiful sporting venues, and just slop chips is what we call it. Just
what's it called?
Slop chips, which is how's the translation? It's just fries, but salt and vinegar.
Okay.
And on the
so salt and vinegar French fries.
French fries would be that would be the closest to what it actually is.
Okay,
it's
but not doesn't have any garnishes like
no, it's just the memory
of
sitting there with my dad.
Salt and vinegar
on
chips,
Test cricket, and just being there, and the smell of the brewery coming over. That's a sporting experience for me. I'm not at work. So
terrific. What's the first app you open in the morning?
While I'm traveling, WhatsApp, because then I'll get the update from the family first.
Yep.
So I'm here for a month now. So before I get hit by the 30 emails.
Yeah.
So WhatsApp would be the first, and then emails, and then I'll go check Twitter and Facebook.
Terrific. What is there someone that you suggest the podcast listeners should follow, that you follow, whether they be someone on Twitter or a book you're reading or someone that you sort of look towards?
I don't know why I'm struggling with this one.
What's the last book you read? Dramatic pause.
No, I'm still on the Twitter one. I'm thinking in terms of sports business, there's nothing really to add there. Darren always gives some good insights there.
Darren Ravel?
On the betting stuff. That keeps me up to date. So everyone probably follows him. The other people that I follow have more because of comedy than anything else. So politics, and I won't bother you guys with that. And reading, I read fragmented. So I found that I don't finish many books.
Yep.
I'll get into and don't read much fiction either. So I'll read a lot of articles and white papers on.
Is there a tool or a way that you curate and get those?
No, it'll depend on the topic of interest at that time. So I'll start. So when I started computer vision, I'll start by reading up, do your normal search, but then I'll also look at companies that are doing it and identify the people within it and create a bit of a tab for that. And so it becomes completely fragmented, but
then you sort of trust the algorithms that those people's thoughts and articles and stuff will bubble up to you.
And then I'll unfollow them when I've got it. Then I've got enough about computer vision.
And is that a Twitter thing, or is it a
Twitter? Actually helps me a lot. I think that's my most valuable tool. It has been so far. LinkedIn I don't find as useful because I'm never looking for a job.
Yep. Oh well, you've gone and answered which social media platform is your MVP. You're very much using Twitter as both a news discovery and a content discovery platform,
and just keeping me up to date. And then it's interesting for me to follow specific people. I follow for a while, and then I drop that list.
Okay.
If it's a specific topic, but it's more for general stuff. Knowing what's going on in politics and sports.
And I mean, the way I use it is to stay connected with people that I do know and meet. Yeah. To sort of know, whether it's just, and especially from a global point of view, whether it's yourself in South Africa, Shane Harmon in New Zealand, or what Todd's doing, Todd Cafflish is doing, like to see what they're doing. And Twitter does a relatively good job of making sure you keep seeing that. I did use lists for a while, but they haven't really figured out a way to put it easily in the app.
I obviously, I have my frustrations with Twitter as well. I'd like to actually see who's. While I'm here, I get the same tweet every time I open it up.
Yeah.
But just historically, it's been very helpful understanding different contexts and giving insight.
So one tool I point people to from a Twitter point of view is Nuzzle.
Oh yes, I've used that for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've stopped actually, but
because it's very good at curating. Right. This is what your lists and followers are tweeting. So. It's very good in that sense. So that's it. It's enough for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
No, I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you very much, Tinus Le Roux from FanCam.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Tinus Le Roux. You can send him a tweet. Tinus Le Roux is his Twitter handle, TinusLeroux. And you can keep up to date with... Tinus is going to keep sharing those birding photos. But please ask him any questions you might have about FanCam. And for me, the fan data side of FanCam business is... super interesting. So you can reach him, Tinus, at fancam.com if you want to send him an email. Tell him that I sent you. I'd love to hear... I love hearing podcast listeners working with and connecting with podcast guests. I do get a real buzz when I reconnect with guests and find out that they've got a lot of feedback on the podcast, both in person and from people who have listened. So please reach out to any guests. They have been very... I'm very thankful to give up time for me, for the chat, for you guys from an audience point of view. But they're more than willing to do that with listeners as well. So thanks again to Tinus. And get his name right, Sean. It's not that hard. As discussed there from DJ Joel, digital to dollars. You can go to digitaltodollars.com. Still putting a call out for case studies. Please let me know if you've got a killer content, killer campaign, something that activates your audience. I'm looking for some good case studies to include in the book. And if you're interested in digital to dollars as a process, it's available in sort of multiple formats. Currently, there's obviously the workshop format, the short form workshop that I did in Dallas, which is very quick and challenging, both from a presenter point of view and from an audience point of view. But the longer form process of knowing your audience, knowing your content, knowing your distribution, knowing your valuation, and so diving in on the rate card and understanding your story around the rate card, and then the important piece, working with your commercial team in knowing your pitch, and it's really about aligning what your digital team are doing, what your data team are doing, what your commercial team are doing, getting them all on the one page. My goal is the digital to be the number one, the primary revenue drive for sports by 2030. I'd like for your help. I think digital dollars will help do that. Will help secure that digital activation revenue, which I think is largely under realised in the sports industry. So if you're interested, if you're struggling with that, connect with your commercial and digital departments. If you work in sponsorship and you want to drive in more dollars, or if you work in digital and you want to do more cool things, please give me a call. You can do that. Use the old style phone number, or reach out, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com, or go to digitaltodollars.com for more. A few things just to wrap up. Sports Geek News is still going gangbusters. It's a weekly newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/SGN. Thank you very much to Jolie and Meg who helped put that together. People sometimes ask how Sports Geek News, how do things get selected to go into the newsletter every week? It's your clicks. If you're following me on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and the like, whatever I read, I share. Whatever I share gets clicked on. Whatever gets the most clicks ends up in the newsletter. It's a pretty straightforward process. I really do follow the data and follow the clicks. It does provide a really nice mix of sports, technology, business, marketing, social media, stadium. Really varied list of all the things that I read. They all end up in the Sports Geek News. And there is an offer at the moment for Sports Geek News subscribers to join Sports Geek Nation. So that's an added bonus. Really enjoying jumping back into Sports Geek Nation now that I'm back in Australia. A little bit easier than with all the travel. And we're going to start doing some Reddit-style AMAs with Sports Geek Nation members, because what I really want to get out of the Sports Geek Nation community is to help raise and amplify what people are doing in the space. And so some really smart people in the community, in the Slack community and in the Facebook group. So we're going to start having these AMAs to profile and share their knowledge and experience. So we'd love you to join us. Go to sportsgeeknation.com for more. That's it. That's it for this episode. That's it for all the calls to actions. As always, you can get in touch with me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. And until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.